Colin Jewett here with Curiosity Jump, and in this video I wanted to talk a little bit about the idea of attention management. So in the self-improvement productivity space, the idea of time management has become really popular. You have all these different strategies, from scheduling out every minute of the day and using project management tools such as Trello, which I'm a big fan of, and all this stuff is awesome and it's really valuable. But where it falls short is it fails to address the basic truth that regardless of how much time you have, that time is worthless if you can't use it effectively. And so that's where this idea of attention management comes in. So if you have 4 hours of time to work on a project, but you have no attention to spare, and you can't stay focused and you're distracted, that time is going to be wasted. Even if you spend, even if you've put in the effort to create a calendar and plan out every task you're going to perform and how you're going to do it, and you've put in the preparation, if you can't stay focused, that time and that effort that you've put in is wasted. So something that I've come up with, and a strategy that I've come up with for improving your time or your attention management so that you can make use of all those time management tools and skills, is the idea of attention mapping. So the basic concept is this: there are 2 different categories of stimuli that consume your attention. Information consumes attention, and there are 2 different ways that we take in or we evaluate or process information. There's external stimuli, so that is anything that you observe or take in through your senses. So anything that you see, anything that you feel, taste, smell, or touch. So that would all be external stimuli. So for example, if you think of a rock concert, the sound of the music, that's an external stimulus. And the sight of the band playing on the stage, the feeling of the grass beneath your feet, all those are external stimuli. And they consume our attention. That is information that's coming to us from our environment. The other type of stimulus or stimuli would be internal. So these would be things such as thoughts, cognition, reasoning, logic, emotion. I would even classify an internal sensory experience, whether that is pain or you could think of it as imagination. These are the internal cognitive versions of the external. So, for example, I can either see that rock band playing on the stage with my eyes, or I can imagine them in my mind. So those are 2 different things, even though they're processed in a similar way and we experience them in a really similar way. They're really putting a different kind of strain on our attention. So if you understand that distinction between external and internal, it allows you to map out your attention in a very interesting and, I think, useful way. And I've used this to take control of my time and use it more effectively and stay focused without experiencing as much burnout throughout the day, throughout the week, and even over longer periods. And what I've made is I call it attention mapping. And what it is, it pairs up with a calendar really nicely. And I built it that way because I really wanted it to be a visual representation of how you're spending your attention based on internal and external factors. So I'm going to go ahead and do a quick screen share and show you what this looks like and how you can use it to spend your time more effectively and focus and prevent that burnout that frequently happens. Okay, so in this screen share, I have a Google Calendar that is completely empty. I have it pulled up, and I'm going to show you how you could map out your attention throughout the day and throughout the week based on the different tasks that you have. So if I'm scheduling out my time, I could, for example, put on here, let's say I wake up at the same time every day. I wake up at 7 a.m., for example, and my morning routine just consists of the usual getting dressed, showering, and brushing my teeth and all that stuff. So I'll write on here morning routine. Now, most of us, if we have an established morning routine where we do the same thing every morning, we can almost do that on autopilot without thinking, and frequently you might find that you totally forget the experience of doing that in the morning. You look back and you really can't remember what it was like because you've just done it so many times, it's really automatic. So that's something I would classify as very light external. In other words, you're really not taking in very much sensory information. It's there, but you're not paying attention to it. So it's not consuming your attention. You're in the shower, but you're not really paying attention to the feeling of the water as it hits you, or the temperature, unless it's really hot or cold. And when you're brushing your teeth, you're not really thinking of the sensation because you've just felt it so many times before. So you really can just tune that out and ignore it. So I'd classify that as very light external experience. And I'll classify everything on this light to heavy spectrum. Light being you can pretty much ignore it if you want to. You can choose to ignore it pretty easily. And heavy being you can't ignore it. It's like you might think of sensory overload. That would be a very heavy, externally dominant experience that's just consuming your attention via your senses. And so I'll do the same thing with internal sensations, going from light to heavy. Heavy maybe being this extreme emotional experience of joy or grief, or extremely challenging cognitive problems. So if you're playing in a chess tournament and you're just extremely engaged and thinking through all the different moves, I might classify that as a heavy external or internal experience. So anyway, back to that morning routine on the calendar. And I'm going to go ahead and color code these so you can see it more visually. I'll change it on here. So anything that's internal, I'm going to put on the blue spectrum. Anything that is external, I'm going to put on the yellow to red spectrum. So for a light external, I put that as a yellow. Okay, but that morning routine is not just an external experience, it's also an internal experience. So some of you out there might do a lot of thinking during this morning routine. Maybe you're thinking about the day, or you're thinking through a problem that you couldn't solve the day before or something like that. If you're like that, I might classify this as a moderate internal experience because there is a lot of cognition going on. It's not extreme, but it's something. For me, I would put it as a pretty light internal experience. I kind of let my mind wander, and I don't try to focus on anything too hard in that morning routine. I just let myself wake up slowly, and I found that's the most refreshing thing for me. So for mine, I might put this also as a light internal experience. And I'd color it accordingly, so for me that would be a light blue. And so now that's our first part of our attention map, and we're going to go ahead and do that throughout the day. So I'll do a little more rapid fire, so this video doesn't take 2 hours. So let's just say, okay, so I might do coaching check-ins with my clients for an hour in the morning. Okay, and so I would classify that as a moderate internal. It's just checking up, so I need to look over what they've been doing, the tasks that they've been working on, anything they're getting behind on, and come up with some constructive feedback or encouragement. So I would go ahead and put that as maybe lavender color, a little bit darker blue. And I would still put that as a light external experience. And this is a good point to think about. So the reason I can categorize it as such is because my workspace is usually very clean. The visual space in front of me is not cluttered, and I do that for a reason, so that my attention is not consumed by that external experience. As I'm sitting at my desk, I don't want my mind to just be distracted by all the random stuff on the table. So I try to keep my workspace very clean, try to keep the visual space in front of me very clean, and I really moderate my environment so I'm not distracted by external stuff too much. And coaching check-ins, I mostly do that through Trello, and it's not like I'm watching or listening to a rock band or anything like that. So I'd put that as a light external experience as well, so that would be yellow. Okay, and so I might have coaching calls. And I put those as well as a moderate internal experience. Very actively listening to my clients and providing constructive feedback and encouragement. And sometimes we'll even do workshops where we're going through exercises together. So there is some cognitive load there, moderate internal. That's how I classify that. So the same. And I would put that as a light external experience as well. And I'd say for many people, this is decently representative of what a workday might look like. You may find that you don't have a lot of external stimuli. I mean, if you work on a construction site, maybe that's different. Maybe there's a lot of loud noises. But even with that, over time, you'll tune things out. And so you might find that you're doing a lot of cognitive load, but not so much, you're not paying as much attention to the physical stimuli. So that's very common. And one of the side effects of that, and this is why we're talking about attention management, is if you spend your entire day focused on those internal stimuli, it's very, very cognitive in nature, a lot of critical thinking involved throughout the day. You tend to block out that external stuff, or at least you try to a lot of times. And what I've seen is that by the end of the day, if you just do that all day without any breaks, by the end of the day, you're feeling extremely mentally exhausted. You don't really want to do anything that involves thinking. And if you are like that, you might just end up spending every evening sitting on the couch watching TV because you are just sick of thinking so much. And so watching TV I would put as maybe a moderate external experience. You're very focused on the visual. Or if you're watching like a horror movie, maybe it'd be a heavy external experience. And so you tend to move towards that vacuum, I guess. So if you've spent so much time on internal stimuli, you're going to tend to move towards things that are more external in order to get some relief. And so you'll find yourself getting tired every day, essentially, and feeling burnt out and not being able to work on things that are very intellectually productive in the evenings. And that could be frustrating if you, for example, if you're trying to learn something after work, if you're trying to learn a language on the side or learn a new instrument or something like that, you might find you just never have the motivation to work on that kind of thing because you've exhausted your attentional resources, at least in that category. And so once you've worked through this and you've worked through your calendar and you've mapped it out, if you find that, wow, my schedule is just extremely heavy internal stimuli all the time and I'm focused on this internal stuff, that could be a good indication of why you're feeling exhausted at the end of the day. And so what I would recommend, and a great use for this tool, attention mapping, is try to make your calendar a little bit more striped. Try to create these different patterns where you are alternating back and forth between the two types of stimuli. So one way that people do this is, on your lunch break, instead of spending your lunch break doing something that's very cognitive, do something that is more external, like going on a walk outside and paying attention to the trees and the sound of the birds and the feeling of the concrete and the temperature on your skin. And meditation, you might think that's a very internal thing, but it's actually, if it's mindfulness meditation anyway, it's a very external thing, focusing on your senses, the feeling of the breath in your lungs. And so that would actually be classified, I'd classify that as a moderate external load and a very light internal. So if you find yourself feeling exhausted in one of these ways, take the time to map out your attention throughout the day and see what it looks like. And you might be surprised to find you're really overloading one side or the other. And so you can really fix that problem by adding in some more variety throughout the day, taking breaks, and opting to focus on the other type of stimuli for a while and giving your mind a rest and a chance to recuperate and get ready to go back into that heavy internal or external that you've been focusing on so much. I think that about covers what I wanted to talk about in this video. I hope that was a helpful explanation of how this works and will help you to manage your attention better so you can make use of your time.